Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about how I brought this little one from Sydney, Australia to London, the UK. Yeah, I just want to talk about the process, the costs. I will let you know how much everything is by the end of the video, tips on saving money, how easy it was, and yeah. Um, so firstly, this is Softy. They look a bit crazy at the moment because they need a grooming, so I need to get that booked in. But yeah, we moved here 2 years ago from Australia, Sydney, and we now live in London. And of course, I brought my dog. Like, why? There's like literally no other option. Why would I leave my dog? My child. This is my baby, my child, back there. And yeah, so I understand some people don't want like to bring their pets on planes and flights because they're going to go into the cargo and they just feel sorry for them. But I think we forget how like resilient dogs can be. But I get more into that like on Softy's actual journey later in the video. Um, so yeah, so we moved here 2 years ago, and sorry if my um information's not super clear. I don't remember everything, but I have some notes, and I'm making this video now because I made several TikTok videos of it um when I was actually doing the move 2 years ago, and people are still commenting like questions and whatnot. So here we are. Um, And yeah, so this was 2 years ago. I don't know what has changed in terms of like the process, the costs, documents, and stuff like that. But I assume it's not too much different. Okay, so firstly, starting the whole process, um, you will need to find a company for them to take your pet to the UK. And surprisingly, the whole process was easier than expected. I think because I was coming from Australia to the UK and you don't have to quarantine your pet when you land here. But if I were to fly back to Australia, then my dog will have to be quarantined, I think in Melbourne for like at least 10 days or something. So that's going to be a more difficult process because Australia is more strict on their like, laws on bringing things in. So I think because of that, it wasn't as difficult as I imagined it to be coming into London. Anyway, so yeah, starting the whole process, I was asking a bunch of companies around 2 months before um, I was leaving Australia. I think that's a good amount of time. Maybe you could even do 1 month before you leave, but that might be kind of a bit close though. So yeah, around 2 months, you ask a bunch of companies, check how much each company is. That more or less they are quite similar. I would say the bulk of the difference is the customs clearance costs. So I ended up choosing flying with, choosing for my dog, JetPets, because my sister also moved to the UK like 6 months, I think, before me, and they had a pet and they used jet pets. So yeah, and their process was fairly easy. I heard good things, so I just went with the same company. Jet pets also price match with because I found another company that was a bit lower cost, and I just sent the quote to Jet Pets and see if they can price match that cost, and they did. So that was good. Yeah, so after selecting a company, um, you what do you have to do? Yeah. Oh, so the custom clearance for your dog or pet is going to be around 1,100 Australian dollars. So most companies would quote this price, or sometimes they wouldn't quote it. So that's something to consider when looking up companies, because that's 1,100 Australian dollars is going to be a big bulk of the total price. I included that custom clearance cost within the whole package just because it's easier. Um, some companies will also not quote a rabies vaccination. That's going to be around 120 Australian dollars. Um, it was 120 Australian dollars with JetPets, and you would have to bring them to their vet at Mascots in Sydney. And I also checked with my local vet at Bondi. That was around 200 Australian dollars. So obviously I would save 80 bucks for that. So check with your local vet if their rabies vaccinations are cheaper than the company that you're going with. That's one way to save money. Um, and then I feel like the biggest difference in terms of price would also be the flight or the date or the airline you fly with. So, um, if you have a confirmed date on when you're flying, then that makes it easier. But most companies will they would, you know, find a flight or something, and that will be quite different. For example, I flew with Qantas. It was on a Tuesday from Sydney to stopover at Singapore, and then Singapore to London. And that flight ended up being cheaper for, I'm talking about for my dog, um, than like flying with Emirates, for example. I'm not sure exactly why. So yeah, obviously the dates on your flying, the airline, that the company that will find the flight for the dog will make a difference in terms of price. Um, my dog ended up flying on the same flight as me, obviously in the cargo section. I don't think I chose, like, you are able to choose the specific flight or airline your dog flies with, because, well, basically if you know what day you're flying, the company will book that date or a date closest to that. So I guess the earlier you book in advance, the more likely that the cargo space in the flight will have space for your pet. Um, and in that scenario, my flight, the Qantas flight, had space for Softy to go into the cargo on that same flight. But if they run out of cargo space, then they will have to put your pet on a different flight on another day or time or whatever. So yeah, depending on the flight that your pet takes, that will make a difference in costs. Um, Another thing, if you're concerned about like stopover, so basically my flight and my dog's flight from Sydney to Singapore, Singapore to London, the stopover in Singapore was way too short. It was like less than 3 hours. Um, so they wouldn't have enough time to let the dog out to, stretch, run around in Singapore. And so therefore my dog had to be in their crate for the entire journey, which is around 25 hours, which is not ideal, obviously. Um, but if your pet was on a different flight, for example, from Sydney stopover to Dubai, for example, with Emirates, the Dubai stopover is, I think, longer, and therefore they might be able to take the dog out of the crate and let them run around or something. I don't know the details. I'm pretty sure you can't actually see your pet during the stopover, but at least they can let the dog or pets out of the crate and out of the cargo. Again, I'm not sure about this detail, but that's something to consider if you're concerned about, your pet being in the crate for a long amount of time. Personally, I wasn't too concerned with my dog being in the crate for that long because Softy, this little one is super strong, super confident in everything. Um, Obviously, 25 hours in a flight is not ideal, but I know that it's like they're not gonna die. Like, yes, they're gonna get stressed and scared, and but they are very strong animals. I think dogs and in particular my one. So I wasn't too concerned about that. At the end of the day, the animals they used to be like hunt for their own food in the forest in the wild. They used to be like wolves. Like they are very strong um, creatures. I guess it's a different scenario if your dog is like quite old and have health um, like concerns. My dog is only 3 years old. Is that how old? Yeah, you're 3, right? So my dog jumped on the plane when they were 1 year old. So super healthy puppy age, no health concerns. But if you were to bring your dog that is like over 10 years old with other health issues, then yeah, that is something to consider. Yeah, I think because when you book with the company, you have to sign like a waiver if something happens to your dog. They can't really, I don't know, it's like not really their fault or something. Like God forbid, but and I wanted the what do you call it? To know that my dog was on the same flight as me and like landing in this on the same day and stuff like that. So yeah. Okay, what's next? Um, Another way to save money is to have your pet arrive um, either before or after, sorry, within 5 days of your day of landing. So either before, 5 days before or 5 days after. It has to be within that window. If your pet arrives 5 days, I mean, over 5 days, so this is so confusing to say. More than 5 days after your flight or more than 5 days before your flight that you land in the UK, then you will have to pay 125 Australian dollars more. I'm not sure the reason for this, but yeah, that's one way to save money. So I ideally I wanted um, no, actually, well, it depends on your situation on like what happens when you arrive. Do you want to pick up your pet straight away, or do you want some a window on to like settle in first, move in, blah blah blah. So that's up to you. Um, but yeah, I think picking my dog on the same day was good because then also saves time on going to the airport and stuff like that. Um, so that's that. Okay, so starting the physical process after you found the company, you would have to pay 500 Australian dollars, which is non-refundable. And I found out this is the case for most companies that you would go for. So, but this is included in the total package. Um, so after you pay the 500 non-refundable fee, you basically fill out all the information on the portal. Um, so find all your pets vaccines. You can probably get this from your vet or whatever. Upload all that information. You have to measure your pet's size, so their height with weight. Softy at the time, and I think still is, it was around 8 kilos, 60 centimeters wide, and 55 centimeters in height. So fairly small. Um, I'm not sure if this affects the price. Like if you were to bring a bigger dog, would that be more expensive? Or even like a smaller one, would that be like less expensive? I'm not sure. Um, because obviously they need the measurements to get the right crate size. So yeah, basically they need a crate where your pet is able to fully stand and have still some space inside. So maybe a bigger crate could be more expensive, but the crate in my case with JetPets was included with the price. I don't think they separated how much the crate was actually is in terms of, yeah, they just gave me the whole figure. They didn't like say on how much the crate was. It then yeah, so you upload your information, get their size. You have to take a photo, a front photo of them, side photos, and a back photo. Upload that onto the portal. Um, and then you need to get the rabies vaccination at least 2 weeks before you fly, before they fly. Um, and I did mine around 2 months beforehand, so it was pretty easy. You just have to take them to wherever you're getting it done. So I had to take mine to the JetPets vet at Mascot, which I wasn't too far away from, so that was fine. It was easy. After that, you pretty much just wait until the day close to the day of your flight. And in this time, I recommend to apply for a transfer of residence application for the UK. So basically, this allows you to not have to pay for tax if you're bringing over a bunch of items, boxes, animals, whatever. Um, my transfer of residence application, I did that, but it took longer to be approved because I filled out the information wrong, so that was my bad. So because when I arrived in London, um, my transfer of residence wasn't approved yet, so I had to pay tax for my dog upon arrival, which was £27, which is not too much, um, but you can get that refund. I did get mine refunded, and but you don't have to pay that at all if your transfer of residence application is approved before you land in London. So that's something to do before you go. I'm not sure how long it takes actually for it to be approved. And then leading up to the day of flying, they will send you the crate of your dog. Um, Mine got sent to me around 3 to 4 weeks before we were flying. So a good amount of time for them to adjust, get familiar with the crate. I made it like a safe space for them to like relax in. I put treats in it so they, are familiar with the crate itself. The one they sent me was a PP 50 plus. Instead of photo here. Um, the water bowl comes with it. It stands inside the crate. And basically you can't put anything in the crates. Will take off their collar, no clothes for them, no air tags because that's like could be dangerous because of the battery. Yeah, anything like that's a choking hazard. No toys. I think you can put like a top or a shirt in so they can like smell you, or like a small blanket. Um, yeah, something to keep them warm or that they can smell your scent, so they feel more relaxed. But nothing like no toys, no collars, stuff like that. Um, yeah, because it could be dangerous if something happens inside the crate and no one's actually in the cargo during the flight, I assume. Um, and then so yeah, that was that. And then the day before our flight, they picked up my dog, um, and that's when they would do final health checks, worming, flea kind of treatments. They would stay overnight at that facility, um, and then yeah, they will send you messages and updates on when. Like, let me see if I got that. Yeah, they will send you messages and updates to your phone, like your pet has completed their final health clearance, stuff like that. Your pet has been delivered to the boarding facility. Um, then the day of flying, yeah, they would stay overnight at that boarding facility, and then they sent me another message saying your pet checked in at Sydney Airport for flight blah blah blah. You can track your pet's flight progress by clicking this link. JetPets also sent me some updates and like photos of them. Like they sent me like two photos on the entire journey, or three photos. It was just photos of them at like maybe Sydney Airport or the boarding facility. Softy at the time, the photos itself was quite funny because I actually I shouldn't be laughing because I assume Softy looked stressed because they weren't groomed and their fur and hair was super messy, so they looked a bit stressed from the photo. So it was a bit funny in that situation, even though I felt sorry. But you know what can I do? So they only sent me like two or three photos at the boarding facility in Sydney on the entire journey. That's something to yeah, something to consider or to take note of. When I was boarding the flight itself, I checked with like one of the air hostess to check if my dog was actually on the flight as well in like the cargo section. So you can do that. The air hostess would basically, I think they would ask the pilot or someone to double check that, and yeah, they confirmed that my dog was indeed on my flight. I think um, I'm not sure what details you had to give the air hostess. Maybe like a ID number or something. I forgot. I'm sure you will get that information. Um, yes. So yeah, the whole flight, no updates until I had my stopover in Singapore, and uh, again they weren't allowed out. But when I was reboarding the same flights to London, I checked again to see if my dog was still on the flight, and they confirmed that that was the scenario. So that was yeah, nice to know. Um, and then yeah, landed in London, and I think uh, yeah, take they would unload all the cargo and pets at Heathrow Airport and take them to like this animal reception center, which is around 10 minutes away from the airport. So, in that sense, you kind of want to like just stay at the airport or stay somewhere close by since you had to wait for your dog. It took around, I don't know, 2 hours ish to pick up my dog after like not after landing, maybe 3 hours. I'm not. It wasn't too long, but it wasn't straight away. So it's not like when you land, you get off, you collect them from the baggage um, section. It's not that like kind of scenario. You have to wait a few hours for them to check everything at the separate animal reception center close to Heathrow Airport. And that's when I also got an email saying that because of my transfer of residence application wasn't approved yet, so I had to pay the £27, um, and I just did that on the spot from the email link for the customs clearance for them. Yeah, and then after that, yeah, just waited a bit, and then went to go to the animal reception center. They would tell you when they're ready, and you had to give them like the ID number, whatever, and yeah, wait a little bit, and they will you get to meet your pet again, which was yeah really nice. They Softy was so happy to see me again, full of energy. I think that's why I wasn't worried. Like they were so yeah, just jumping. Technically, it was only like one day apart. Like me and my dog was only like I don't know 2 days because they left a day before. Um, so I'm sure Softy was super confused when like when they got picked up the night before into the van because there was other dogs in crates barking and stuff. And then when I got my crate back, it smelled like piss. Obviously, they would have had accidents in the crate, like no doubt about that. Which is, like you can't really help that situation. And but yeah, anything. Yeah, got my dog. Was all happy. Um, I think knowing that the like flight itself is cold, even for me as a human being flying in the cabin, it gets cold for me. I assume flying in the cargo area is super cold as well. So I think one tip to make your feel dog a bit or your pet feel a bit more comfortable is to leave their hair. If you have like a similar breed, like mine's a mini labradoodle, so it has that poodle half poodle mix, is to leave their fur long. Like don't like go get it groomed or shaven off before you fly, because at least they have the fur to help them keep warm during the flights. That's one thing I considered. And yeah, so okay, so the total price, again, this was 2 years ago, was $4,920 Australian dollars. Okay, so that's not cheap. Um, but girl, I'm not gonna leave my dog. If I'm moving countries, I'm not gonna leave my dog. You know, and like this is my child. I had to pay what I have to pay, and yeah, it's a lot of money. Something to consider and save up for. Um, Again, there's ways to save money on different companies, different airlines, getting your rabies vaccinations done elsewhere or whatever it is. So there are small ways to save money, but it's still going to be a lot of money to bring them all the way from Australia to the UK. Um, and yeah, so here we are, 2 years later. Do I regret it? No, absolutely not. Obviously, it's a lot of money, but I cannot leave my baby elsewhere. And like now, Softy can brag to the other dogs, like I flew, like I'm from Australia, blah blah blah. I hopped on a plane and stuff, and yeah, isn't that well? You know what? I'm not sure if Softy even knows they're in a different country. Like, well, I'm sure they miss the beach because we used to live close to the beach. Um, anyways, that was. I think that's pretty much everything. Feel free to ask me questions. Um, I'm not sure how different it is from 2 years ago. What's the whole process like in the course? And if I were to fly back to Australia, don't want to think about that to be honest. Yeah, uh, yeah. I think if you're considering it, 100% do it. Anyways, let's end on a happy note. Get a cute thumbnail. Yeah, I hope this video was informative for you guys. Please ask questions in the comments. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.